Black woman. Beautiful, powerful, resilient female of African descent with skin kissed by the sun. Conversation. A talk, especially an informal one between two or more people in which news and ideas are exchanged. We love being black women. Black women are ambitious. Black women are confident. Black women are diligent. We are tenacious. We walk out of our houses put together. We are many shades and personalities of fabulous. But we as black women don't talk about our dilemmas, current events, and what's going on every day that affects us. So, we created this podcast as a way to laugh together, cry together, and have an open conversation about life as black women.
Oh, that's deep. Black Women Conversations.
Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Johnny.
How's your week been?
It's been busy. Really, I feel like the weekend's been busy. You know, today is James's birthday. So shout out to my husband. Happy birthday to my husband. And y'all, you know, he just turned 37, which means that I'm sort of kind of a cougar girl. And, you know, for some reason, I thought he was turning 38. And he was like, no, babe, 37. And I had to literally sit there and count on my fingers and do the math. And I said, oh, you're right. I'm a cougar.
I don't think that 3 years or 2.5 years makes you a cougar, but I also don't think that I realized how young James was. He's younger than me.
He's young.
Yes, he's young.
He's younger than my sister.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, yeah, maybe.
Because Stacy will be 38 this year.
Yeah. And he just turned 37. Yeah, when you put it like that, Nicole, yeah, maybe you are robbing the cradle a little bit.
Dang, just make me feel bad. Why don't you? Isn't there a point where age really, 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 really doesn't matter for a woman and a man? I mean, isn't that, or are we just in the times of social norms being that all men should be older than that they date and marry?
No, I don't think it matters. I think that it's more of like a badge of honor for the person who is like snatching up the young honey dip. But like, I don't think that it matters, honestly, because let me put it like this. I think that it's kind of a badge of honor for both of you in this situation, because that also means that James is super mature for him to be able to snag an older woman, let alone an older woman who is a double board certified doctor. So shout out to James. Happy birthday to James. But yeah, you did snag a honey dip. Just saying.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because when I met him, I don't think I knew he was as young as he was. And then once we start dating, it was like, wait a minute, you're how old? And then I was like, well, it's too late now. I guess we can keep on rolling with you being 3 years younger, but you're going to have to keep up. Keep up.
Well, look, he'll keep up. And then, you know, when you get older and somebody has to change your diapers, he'll be perfect age. It's like a win-win.
Well, you know, also the thing is, and I was talking to him about this too, you know, women tend to live longer than men, you know? So I'm like, well, you got 3 years, you know, because isn't the average age or life expectancy for men just 3 years less than women, I believe? It's crazy because both my grandmothers are still living and both my grandfathers have been deceased for at least over 5-6 years each. My grandmother on my mom's side, who's still living, outlived my grandfather now by 20 years. I'm like, oh my God, that's a really long time.
Yeah, I don't know. In my family, the women, well, I'll say this. My great grandmother outlived almost everybody. My grandmother passed away before my grandfather. And then my Nana outlived my grandfather, but she was a lot younger. And then I'm trying to think on the other side, on my dad's side, I remember my dad's mother, but I don't remember his father. So she outlived my grandfather by probably 2 decades. So I'm all about the age swapping. I don't really think that it matters when you're grown. Do whatever works for you. Because at the end of the day, the only person that really got to put up with you, and they don't even have to put up with you for a long period of time if they don't want, because you know there's such a thing as divorce, is your spouse. So look, do what works for y'all. As long as both people are consenting adults, I think that that's all that matters.
That's real. But, you know, on another note, you know, I had to call poison control this morning because Harrison, you know, had this ACT mouthwash for kids. and you squeeze it and it allows just a little bit to go up at a time, right? It's bubblegum flavored. So apparently, I don't know how much he consumed, but he consumed enough to freak me out. So I had to call poison control. Yes, even doctors call poison control. I'm not a pediatrician. I needed some advice. I said, how much is the toxic dose? You can't do too much fluoride. And some of these mouthwashes actually contain alcohol. So you can get alcohol poisoning. Now, most of the kids' mouthwash is it's so low you can't even calculate it. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But I had to make sure, girl. I had to make sure. And the guy was so nice. He just sat there and calculated on the phone. And he was like, yeah, he's way below the toxic dose. I'm like, well, what if he drank this amount? And I just underestimating it. He's like, he's far from the toxic dose. I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure. Poison control will give you some answers. So, I mean, when in doubt, y'all call poison control on these children, what they put in their mouths. Don't ever. And that's a quick way to get answers, right? So people are like, I'm going to call my pediatrician's office, which is going to take 2-3 hours to get back to you. By that time, your baby vomiting. Call poison control, especially if your baby's consumed something or you don't know what it is. Find the bottle, call poison control. Make sure you keep it locked up in the future. So now I've learned, listen, I need to teach him good swish and spit hygiene so he won't think it's like just a drink, right? Because it's so good, so yummy. And he's like, this is so yummy. Give me that. Sneaking in the bathroom, getting it from under the counter. I'm going to have to keep this locked up like I keep the bleach locked up. Who knew?
Okay, I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing at the fact that you had to call poison control. I'm laughing because as soon as you said that he got into the mouthwash and you said it was Act mouthwash, I knew what flavor it was because it does taste yummy. Let's be honest. That's what they give us at the dentist. I remember I can vividly remember what it tastes like. Just like, you can remember what grape Dimetapp tastes like. You can remember what the Act bubblegum mouthwash tastes like. And it's bright pink. So it looks like you should just be drinking it and slurping it up. So I'm glad that it's not poisonous. So just in case he drank the entire thing, it's okay. But I knew exactly what it was. But can we go back for a second? Kids always, I think that our human bodies, I will say this, always surprise me when we ingest something that we're not supposed to ingest. And I'm going to tell a really quick story. And this is what made me think about it. So one of my best friend's nephews was really into getting into stuff, right? So one day he went into the cabinet and he had gone into the cabinet because his older sibling had gone into the cabinet, and he found a powdery substance that he wanted to consume. Look, kids get into stuff, right? He reaches his hand in and scoops out a scoop of it and sticks it in his mouth. Gets another scoop of it and sticks it in his mouth. So now at this point, he's eaten between 2 and 5 scoops of this said powdery substance, right? And come to find out, the powdery substance turns colors when it gets wet. And so his mouth is all foamy and blue or purplish, right? He had eaten Kaboom. And the Kaboom, the cleaning product. And surprisingly, you don't really get poisoned by Kaboom. So now I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that anyone go eat Kaboom, but it's not poisonous. They did suggest some Epiclac just in case, it was interfering with things in his little inside. But yeah, no emergency room visit, no nothing. Isn't that crazy?
I found that, because I've had to call poison control more than once. And listen, I am watching my child. Let me start there. I do watch my child. He's very active. He gets into stuff, and I will call them if I'm not sure because, when in doubt, figure it out, right? So I'm going to call when I'm not sure. So I've called probably since Harrison's been born. I think I've called poison control 2 or 3 times. This has been my either second or third time. I know one time I called because of a penny. I didn't know if he had swallowed a penny or not. And then this time I know for sure. I'm thinking maybe I missed one, so I'm just going to give myself a third. But I can only remember those 2 times. I also called when I was keeping my nephew one time because he had ingested something, and it was only a little bit of something, but I didn't know how that was going to react to him. So I called to be sure. But, kids are active. You really do have to watch them very closely. Who knew that Kaboom, isn't it like Comet in the powder form? That's like bleach. I'm surprised that won't cause poisoning, but
Well, if it does cause poisoning, apparently, and I might have this incorrect, so I'll correct it next week after I ask my best friend again. But if it does cause poisoning, apparently it will cause you to vomit up whatever's bad. Like it's not going to stay in your system. It will cause you it to come out, which is why they just suggested a little Epiclat. So they suggested that for, just in case. But they were like, he'll be fine. And that was like five toddler handfuls of, well, between 2 and 5 toddler handfuls of kaboom. It's a little scary when your child is foaming at the mouth, though, I'm sure. And you're not quite sure why, but really it's just from the substance that they've ingested.
Girl, listen, these kids, it's amazing that we're even adults, because I'm sure we did the same stuff.
Absolutely. I vividly remember eating nail polish a couple of times.
That's real. So what did you do this week, Janine?
I didn't really do much of anything, actually. No, it's crazy because I took off bereavement leave for Thursday and Friday and then found myself working. And I realized the one thing that I have realized is very true after you said this is my cathartic relief is in staying very busy and not being, I don't want to say busy because that sounds like I'm just like out here finding things to do, but staying active, right? Like I have to be doing something because I feel like for whatever reason, it's like the idle mind is the devil's playground. And I know that that's not really what it's for, but it's just like when my mind is not thinking of doing something or planning for something, it's almost like all kinds of like weird, strange thoughts come in. So I found myself very busy this week or very occupied this week. And then, of course, yesterday we laid my nana to rest, which now it's very interesting that, one of the things that Kim pointed out was that now we have like a very significant number of family members in the same, cemetery. So, that was actually really interesting. I think we have a total of like 6 now. And that's not something like we don't have a family cemetery here. Now, from a big city, it's not like a family cemetery, but it just so happens that a lot of our family members are buried there. And then today, Ken and I went to go look at houses again. So that's fun until, we have to go to like settlement and stuff. And then that's stressful. But yeah, so that's what we did today. And I think that we found a place that we liked, like a community that's being built right now that we like, but we shall see. Because this has been a long process and getting Ken and I to agree on the necessities is difficult. Like my priorities are like closet size and Ken's priority is how much light is coming into the room. So we shall see. Keep us in your prayers because this has been a long process.
I just think it's freaking awesome. I love shopping for houses. Like it's one of my favorite things to do. It's like go to open houses or just go look at houses. I just love going house hunting. So this is exciting. So what's on your timeline this week?
So on the heels of last week's episode, when we talked about the passing of Kevin Samuels, I decided to double back on a topic that keeps appearing on our timeline. Now, Nicole, you and I have discussed when we're going to talk about this, if we're going to talk about this, like at least 5 or 6 times. So I figure that, look, we've briefly touched on it in other episodes, but we haven't actually addressed the topic. But like, what better time than now? Because what are we waiting for? So here it is. The idea that men are really in relationships to provide money to their partner. Now, I get it. I get where it comes from. And we're not even really going to go into that, but we really need to talk about this. Now, let me be very clear. I am not excluding same gender loving couples because I've also seen this conversation on Twitter between members of the LGBTQ plus community, right? So let me be very clear. This is not about gender, a specific gender for the purpose of this conversation. And I say that because oftentimes, I know you're giving me the side eye, Nicole, but oftentimes what I've seen on Twitter, and as my best friend calls it, gay Twitter, as I see on gay Twitter, there are some more masculine presenting women that expect to pay for their partner and or vice versa. And also with same gender loving male couples, it appears to me that whoever presents in the more masculine fashion is who is the person that does the paying. But I'm not even sure that that's the case. So don't let me speak out of turn. But based on what I've seen, it appears to be the more masculine presenting one. So this conversation is for everyone. If you are in a relationship where one person in the relationship is expected to pay for the majority of everything and the other person is not, this conversation applies to you. So these days, as we know, some women are proclaiming their independence, let's say, and they are announcing or proclaiming that they don't have to marry to get rich. Rather, they can just make their own money and become rich on their own. So some women are talking about how to become the rich CEO and or owner themselves, while other women are still trying to marry to become rich. And they're out here trying to get or even if they're working right now, they're still on the hunt for a man that is going to retire them. And by that, I mean one that's going to pay for their bills. So like credit card, car note, mortgage, rent, whatever. But not just their bills, but they want the man to put them in a nice house, make sure that they're driving a nice car, provide them with the body that they've always dreamed of. So if it means a little nipping and tucking, the man needs to pay for that as well. And all of this comes along with a wardrobe, hair, and nails to accompany all of the other things that the man is paying for, right? So they also want this man to provide a nanny if they have kids and a maid to clean the big house that they've bought for them. And you think that she's going to cook? Why would she waste her energy doing that when the man can just buy a chef as well? Now, does this sound a little bit superficial? Of course it does, because it is, but it's really how people are out here on the internet talking about this, right? So I remember last week when we were talking about Kevin Samuels and his disciples that he has now left in this world. One of the people that we brought up was Pastor Poppy Don. Now, Pastor Poppy Don is notorious for talking to men, and he usually refers to them as bozos, about how they should approach a woman and when they should approach a woman and when they shouldn't approach a woman and so on and so forth. And essentially his message is very similar to that of Kevin Samuels, but without so much vitriol and hatred, right? So his message is men need to make money in order to get a woman. Sounds very similar. But he also says that if you decide that you want to talk to a woman at the beginning of the month, make sure that you have enough money to pay her rent, because she's not thinking about anything else other than how her rent is getting paid. And he also says that if you want to talk to a woman and you want her to spend time with you, then you also need to make sure that her hair and her nails and all of the stuff that she would normally do in her free time is now taken care of, which I'm not mad at that either. Don't think it's a necessity, but I'm not mad at the idea. And then he also tells these men who might not have that kind of money to pay for, take care of a woman, that they need to get their money up so they can stop wasting these women's time, because she's going to leave you when she finds a man that is going to pay her bills or provide her with gifts or shower her with the things that she wants. Now, yes, are there women out here that will probably leave you if you cannot pay her bills and do the things that she wants? Yes, there probably are. But my question is, do you really want to be with that woman? Doesn't matter. Let's go on. Last week, Juicy J made a tweet that, like, it was so simple, but it somehow just became a thing on Twitter. And he said it was very simple. It said, there is nothing wrong with paying a woman's bills. We got to stop this BS. And to be very honest with you, I agree. There is nothing wrong with paying a woman's bills, right? There's nothing. But I will say this. You can get your bills paid. But let's not imply that that's the only reason that we are entering into these relationships. Because do you want to be in a relationship when the only reason that you're with the person is because they're paying your bills? I mean, do you love them? Do you care about them? Do you enjoy spending time with them? Like, what is happening? So the implication from these conversations on social media is that essentially the only reason for a partner is to find someone that is going to be financial support. It's almost like women are out here, and I use the term women because that's what I am. But as I said, applies to men too, are out here looking for partners rather than looking for jobs. So you're out here looking for someone to pay for you rather than finding a job where you can pay for yourself. So look, as Tupac said, I ain't mad at you. I'm not. I don't care if that's what you choose. More power to you. If you want to find somebody that takes care of you and pays your bills so that all you have to do is sit up somewhere and look pretty, God bless you. But I will say this to those people who enjoy those kinds of relationships, right? I'll say proceed with caution. And I say this because I really just want these people to keep a few things in mind. And the first thing I want them to keep in mind is the rate of divorce, especially in this country. What does the rate of divorce look like? And are you protected should divorce happen, right? And if you're not married, I just say proceed with caution, right? The second thing I say is don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, the old folks used to tell us, don't put all your eggs in one basket because if that basket breaks, then you don't have any more eggs, right? So also keep that in mind. And if you're Black women like we are, I would like just to say this. Think about how hard that we are still fighting for our rights and our freedom. Just be careful not to give that freedom away over a tummy tuck or a BBL. That's all I'm saying. Now, I will share my full opinion shortly when we get into this conversation, but I will leave you with this. So there was this post that appeared on our timeline, and the post basically says this. I asked this woman that I've been talking to for a minute for $100. I get, what do you need it for? When do I get it back? And a whole bunch of questions, LOL. I planned a trip for us in the mountains of Colorado for 4 days. Hotel costs per night were $200. Whitewater rafting, $150 per person. Zip lining, $125 per person. Hot air balloon, $250 per person. SUV rental, $80 a day. Not to mention food costs. I had it all covered. I just canceled everything and got my deposits back. I didn't need the $100. I was just seeing what type of response I'd get if I asked for it. I didn't ask when I got my money back when I was planning the vacation. I was just handling business. People don't think long term. Test failed. So also keep that in mind. When you're sitting asking your partner for a ton of money just because you don't feel like you should have to contribute anything, keep this story in mind. I'm kind of torn about this, Nicole. What do you think?
So what I say about all of that and that story is, one, women, there are some women that are out here trying to find a husband to take care of them. And even people that are educated are going to college to find a husband to take care of them. I was, my little high school, the girl that I, really thought of as my rival in high school, she motivated me. She really did. I mean, I owe how ambitious I am because of her. She was, and I won't say her name because people from the Ritter, they already know who this is, but she's a Caucasian girl. We did everything together. We were cheerleaders together, but my grandmother pretty much worked for their family, at some point, because my grandmother is a caterer. So she would cook, they would order stuff and she'd bring it over there and she would help with whatever they needed help with, whatever. And, this is Louisiana. Okay. So, my grandma was pretty much the help there, but I was really good friends with this doctor in the community's granddaughter, and we pretty much went to school together. But she told me, I just want to go to college. I'm going to LSU because I'm trying to find a husband. Like, that's my goal, to find a husband. Now she's very successful. She works in media. She lives in New York. She's not married. I mean, she's very driven and she's very successful. But I remember when we were talking about going to college and where she was going to college, her goal was to meet someone to marry. And I think that our Caucasian women think that more than we do. Okay. But when Black women say we need a man, we want to make sure we find a man that can provide, it's like, you're a gold digger. Well, everybody else is doing it. Like, let's be clear. The Caucasian women are doing it. They are not marrying, Jimbo down the street that can't take care of them. They are very intentional about making sure they can get somebody to take care of them. Even those that that make a lot, that earn a lot, are high earners, they still are going to marry another high earner. You don't see too much, marrying down. And I don't want to say if you make less than your significant other that you're marrying down, but I mean, in terms of the amount of ambition, the education level, like you don't see a lot of them doing a lot of downward marrying when it comes to that. But when Black women say this, it's like we're gold diggers. So I just want to make sure we point that out, that it's not Black women that's looking for somebody that can provide. It's women looking for somebody that can provide. Now, I will say that men out here looking too now. They want to be taken care of too. So now women, especially women that are successful like me and you, Janine, have to be very careful in getting in these relationships and paying for everything and doing everything. And then you get divorced, and what you paying these men? Alimony. Okay. Now I do see, whereas I don't see my Caucasian counterparts marrying somebody that makes less than them or has a lower education level than them as often. I do see a lot of Black successful women will marry someone that doesn't have the same amount of education and that does not make the same amount. I mean, that we will take care of them. A lot of Black successful women do that. So I know that's the flip side of this. We got one extreme, somebody that ain't went to nobody's school, no trade school, don't want to have no job, want to look pretty, want to be taken care of. And then you have this other, highly ambitious women that are now, saying, you know what, he doesn't have to be a high earner. I can take care of him. So I see the extremes, Janine, and I think the extremes are never okay. It's never okay to be extreme. It's not okay for somebody that's highly successful to marry somebody that they can't talk to, because if you are not on the same education level, y'all are not going to relate to the same type of stuff. So to me, it's not even about earning. It's about, hey, do we have anything in common? Are we like-minded? Are we ambitious enough together to think alike? Or are you just going to be annoyed by my ambition and I'm going to be annoyed by your laziness? Okay. Same thing with the woman that wants to be taken care of. Eventually you have a man that, is traveling and moving and shaking, and he is doing his thing. He's an attorney. He owns his own company or whatever he's doing. And you got her that wants to look good, smell good all the time, which is fine, but doesn't bring anything else to the table. So you were mesmerized at first, but after a little while, that gets old. It gets old and it gets boring. And then you got the partner that comes around that looks good and smells good, and she's making what you making. Well, that looks a little bit more tempting. So that's how things become, not really yoked well, unequally yoked there. So, and I know that that's not what the Bible was talking about. They were talking about unequally yoked in faith, but y'all get my point. Eventually that just won't work. It won't work. And so for me, it's not about the money. It's about compatibility. Are you on the same level that you can grow together? Or you growing and this person is not really growing, which is not going to that has no longevity. Okay. None. You can try it for a little while, but it's not going to have any longevity. Okay. Nope.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good point. I think that's also why people grow apart, right? Because as you have to not only look at what people are making now, but what is their ambition like? So if you're ambitious, or you're overly ambitious like you and I are, and your partner is complacent, then what happens? Because now you get 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees, and now you've moved up in the world. And while you might have been making, $50,000 when you all first met, you're now making well into the 6 figures now. What does that look like? Right? So you have to just be mindful of a bunch of things. But one of the things that I'd like to go back to that I agreed with you is it's not a black and white issue. And I don't just mean race. It's not a black and white issue. This is not an extreme issue. There are a lot of variables in this, right? So a couple of things is that, say the first variable is that, what is the status of this relationship, right? Are you married? Because if you're married, that's the conversation that we're having right now, right? If you all are just casually dating, seeing each other, you just made it exclusive, you're engaged, like that conversation isn't really a conversation to be had. If I'm casually dating you, to be very honest, I would rather you not spend money on me because I don't want to feel obligated to continue to date you. Whether that's what the premise of it is or not, it feels very purchased to me, right? So I don't want you giving me money if I don't plan on having any long-term plans with you, because why? Why can't we just see each other and spend time together before we start exchanging our finances, right? And then another variable is, what are you bringing to the table? Because again, like the girl that you mentioned that you went to high school with, she was going to college so that she could find somebody that was going to marry her, right? But you have to do the work to get to the places so that you will be in the same space, the same mindset, so that you can have those conversations with the people that make sense that you have something in common with. But you can't be fresh out of high school going to graduate school parties thinking you're going to find yourself a husband. Now, does it happen occasionally? Of course it does, right? But again, like Nicole said, it's a lot easier when you all can have conversations on the same level. And this is for the good Black women that we know listen to us. We're talking about our base, right? If you are single, the worst thing that I see, and I've seen it with my personal friends, and I've seen it with people that I'm not really friends with, but I just know of, right? I've seen it time and time again. We get successful as Black women, and I'm only speaking to Black women because those are the people that I know that do this personally, that I know, right? I'm not making any generalizations, so spare me. We get very, very successful. We have the amazing job. We have the amazing house. We have the amazing car. We don't have any debt. We're at a point where we feel like we've arrived. But the only thing that we feel like we're missing is a husband. And then we start hearing that clock ticking in our heads. Let me tell you this. That clock starts ticking for some earlier than others. As you get older, the clock gets louder and louder. And oftentimes it's not about having kids. Because Nicole has told us you can have kids as long as Nicole is still practicing medicine. I feel like you can have kids until you close your eyes and be with Jesus. So it's not about kids. It's about the appearance of how successful you are. And for whatever reason, some Black women feel, and again, not a generalization, this is about the people that I know, feel that they don't appear as successful because there's no man attached to them. Now, let me tell you this. Every time that I've had this conversation with one of my friends, the next man that they find, no matter how unqualified or ineligible they would have deemed him before this clock started ticking so loudly, they lock him down and they're stuck with him, whether it's getting knocked up by him or getting married to him. And it's like, girl, a year ago, when your clock wasn't ticking in your ear, so deafening you, you would have never paid this dude dust, but now you're in love. Help Janine understand. And I hate it for us because you are trying to live up to societal standards that were not even created for you. But you want this man, you don't care what he does, and now all of a sudden you're in love. And we're all looking at you like, what hole did you pull him out of? Yeah, he's reasonably attractive. We clearly know from the stories that he's been laying the pipe, but like, what else does he have to offer? I don't know. So what are you bringing to the table, and are we settling? I have a lot of questions around this, right? Because I don't feel like I said, I don't feel like it's black and white. I just feel like we have common sense. Use it. Whatever the situation is, whatever your scenario is, make sure that you're not settling for somebody, whether you're the person that is getting paid to be in the relationship, because that's what that is, or are paying to be in the relationship. Let's make sure that we're not settling, and make sure that we're also not paying for someone to pay us some attention. That's all I'm saying. I don't feel comfortable with it. That's what I'm saying.
You just made people feel like they hooking and hoeing, Johnny. I'm just saying, talking about paying for a relationship. That is not what people are doing. That's not what people are doing. I don't think that people are going in thinking I'm paying for this person. I think that people go into relationships where you have women that are extremely high earners, or men, and somebody that's not, as, hey, maybe maybe I've been too picky, right? I've heard that a lot. As women get a little older, they think, why am I still single? And they go and they're trying to ration everything they did in their previous relationships, right? Or they're trying to figure out why those didn't work or why these men weren't for them. And then they say, well, maybe I was just a little bit too picky. Maybe I need to not be as picky. And maybe it's just important that whoever I'm around, I'm happy. Not understanding that happiness is very temporary. Okay. When the old folks said ain't no romance without finance, they weren't talking about whether you were going to be bougie and make him take you to Ruth's Chris versus, going to Gringos and getting a quesadilla. Okay. They weren't talking about those two things. They were talking about bills being paid, consistently providing, making sure that you are not stressed out at night over how you gonna get from point A to point B in your vehicle, okay? They were talking about those long-term things, the things that you don't worry about when you're dating somebody because you're not sharing spaces, okay? When you're sharing spaces, then you have to have those conversations that say, hey, now there's two of us. We need more space. So we may be moving into something that I can't afford on my own and you can't afford on your own. So, hey, how are we going to make this work out? Okay. And then when men start doing this, what? That's when you have no romance because them finances are not being taken care of. But we forget about that. And I will say that women that earn a lot of money, because I have a lot of friends that are physicians that have married or are dating somebody that makes far less than them, right? And so for them, they're like, well, I've been doing it on my own already. I own a house. I own a couple vehicles. I travel. Why can't I get a travel consultant buddy? Why can't I bring him along with me? I can afford to take him along. So for them, they are saying, hey, the rate limiting factor for me being happy is not the money. It's having a person to tell me that I'm pretty all the time and to support me. Okay. And so because of that, they end up dating or even marrying people that make far less than them. Girl, I'm telling you, I have people that have got married. Guess what happens 6 months later? They get divorced.
Of course. So I think that it's a very odd situation to have someone financing you because it feels one of two ways. It feels either parental or it feels like they're purchasing your time and your energy and your love, right? So I personally don't feel comfortable in that kind of situation, but I'm also going to say this, and I've said it before, people can think I'm hypocritical. I probably am because I have mixed feelings about certain things, and this is one of them. I don't feel like somebody should finance you, so to speak, right? Because there's a certain level of expectation that comes with that, and I don't like the expectation of this monetary exchange on either part. I don't like the expectation of the person paying, and I don't like the expectation of the person who is receiving, because I should not expect that from you, right? Unless we're married, that's not what I should expect. And this is the hypocritical part, right? I also personally believe that in my household, my husband's the head of the household, and in the household, the man should be the head of the household, right? But it means that the head of the household, whoever it is, has to be responsible for ensuring that everything that is a necessity is taken care of. Like you just said, Nicole, that the lights are on, that we have water, that my bills are paid, that I need. There's a roof over my head, right? I have gas in my car, the things that I need to sustain life. There's food in the fridge. All of those things must be taken care of, right? I should not have to think about them. I should not have to work for them. That should be taken care of. But all of the other stuff that I want, the nails, the hair, if I want a car that's luxurious and not just practical, those kinds of things are my responsibility. And I think that I've mentioned this before, that if you are going to say, hey, I want my husband to do A, B, and C, or I want my partner to do A, B, and C, you also have to be willing to live within their means. And if you cannot live within their means, then that's not the right person for you. If you're not willing to supplement what their means are. Now, if he ain't out here trying to get a job to make sure that he takes care of it, or he just want to sit at home and do nothing on his tail, That's when you need to say, okay, we're done. We are done. Because we're not about to be in the business of taking care of people. That's how I feel. I don't think that you should say, kick someone to the curb because they don't make as much money as you. But I also don't think that we should be in the business of buying people's time. And how are you out here supporting me? I mean, look, I know that there's emotional support. I know there's a lot, right? But for me, in order for me to be in a relationship with you and you not be bringing anything in financially, everything else must be pristine. You must look like Denzel. Your body must be like Michael B. Jordan. And I mean, you have got to be whispering sweet nothings in my ear 24/7. And when you and I are not together, they had better be recorded, because that's how amazing you must be to not be bringing finances into my household. Just saying.
I feel different because, I make more than James. But for me, he's still head of the household because he makes pretty much all the decisions when it comes to the household. He really does. But I rely on him to take care of things like bills and things like that. But it comes out of the joint account. So our relationship is different. And I feel that everybody has their own stuff and their own relationship, and whatever works for them, it has to work for them. But don't be taken advantage of. Because if you feel like being taken advantage of, then that's not going to be a healthy situation. Now, I will also say this, my husband probably doesn't have to work, right? He don't have to work. Financially, he doesn't have to work. I can support the household. But I refuse to allow him not to work, and he refuses to not work. And that is what we agree on. It don't matter how much I make. I could be making $1 million a year, which I'm not making $1 million a year. But if I was making $1 million a year, he would still have to work. I'm just saying, something about a man working. I was raised that way. But I'm from the South. We are used to men working. So for me, it's a no for you staying at home and being a stay-at-home dad. Can't do it. Can't do it. But for some women, that's okay. It's a double standard because women do it all the time. They don't work. Their husbands make a certain amount and they say, oh, I'm not working anymore.
Yes, but women often do that because they're pursuing something else. They're not just sitting at home, either motherhood or entrepreneurship. Like, I don't know. And again, you can't say all women or all men, but I'm just of the mindset that if in this day and age, if you want to eat, you need to work. That's just what it is.
Some women really are not doing anything. I mean, there are some women that don't want to work. They don't want to have any children.
You're doing something for that money, but you're doing something for that money. If you're just servicing the man that's giving you the money, you're doing something for that money. That's all I'm saying. And if you are not working and you're just sitting at home, now, if you're a wife, you're a full-time wife, right? But if you're just sitting at home or laying on your back so that you can get paid, I mean, think about it for a second. What are you giving? And this is kind of what I was talking about. Like, are you giving up your freedom? What are you giving to get paid this money? What is it that you're giving away to get paid this money?
Our precious jewels. They worth every penny.
Yeah, unfortunately, nobody can buy my precious jewels. So God has just lended them to Ken for now.
Anyway, let's talk through some of these letters from our listeners. Why don't we?
Let's do it.
All right. So my letter reads, Nicole and Janine, my husband of 8 years asked me to go to work. Now I know what you're thinking. 2 households are better than 1, right? Well, that's what I thought too. I was making pretty good money as a health administrator of a large hospital system. However, once we got married and discussed having children, he said he wanted me to stay home after our first child. That's what I did. I was reluctant at first, but now we have 2 children and I've been a stay-at-home mom for the last 5 years. Being a stay-at-home mom is busy. I have my 2-year-old at home and my 5-year-old is in school and involved in tons of activities. It's like I'm my child's personal assistant. Additionally, I help keep my husband's schedule and keep up with his business finances. For reference, he is a physical therapist and owns his own practice. I do all this while running behind a toddler. 2 weeks ago, my husband asked if I can work part-time to help with the hit we've taken during the pandemic. I didn't say a word and walked out of the room. I thought he got the hint, but he brought it back up over dinner a few days ago. Now, I'm all about helping, but he agreed he would provide. Otherwise, I wouldn't have quit my job. I would have to basically start over since it's been so long since I've worked. Furthermore, I think he should cut down on his expenses before I have to go to work. He's still going to alpha conferences and guys trips. So why do I need to contribute to his leisure activities? As long as bills are paid, he can cut the extra stuff out before I have to go through recertification to go back to work. Ladies, am I being selfish and a spoiled wife, or should I just move forward with getting a job? Signed, Mika.
Okay, Mika. So, look, this is what I'm going to say. The problem here is it doesn't appear that there was any clear expectation as to how long you were going to be a stay-at-home mom, right? So I say this because you said that your 5-year-old is in school and your 2-year-old is at home still, but that 2-year-old should be either turning 3, I'm assuming, because you said the pandemic, unless you had the baby during the pandemic, which I don't know. But I'm not about to do the math on how old your kids are. What I'm saying is, unless you plan on having more children, what's the harm in taking on a part-time job? And before you start telling the single provider of your household to cut back on his leisure activity, let's remember that the money that we're spending is his money. And we're not going to work him 100% to death, because then there's going to be no money and we're going to have a GoFundMe to help pay for your family and your kids, right? So I'm saying this because alpha conferences, I think is what you said, and guys trips. Well, you can't work this man into the grave. So let him take these leisure trips, unless you're saying that you all are so strapped. It doesn't sound like that's what you're saying. It said to make up for the loss during the pandemic. So I ask you this, can your 5-year-old not cut any of these extracurricular activities? Because you said that you're managing the schedule for your husband and the 5-year-old. So before we start cutting the breadwinner's leisure activity, why don't we cut some of this 5-year-old leisure activity? Or is it just me? I'm trying to understand why we are so adamant about your husband cutting his trips when he's the one that's bringing in the money. Maybe it's me. And again, not saying that I don't feel like, you have a valid point, because you all agreed that you shouldn't have to work, but he didn't ask you to go back to work full time. He asked you to take a part-time job. You don't have to go back into healthcare if you don't want to. You can go. This might be a time to start a whole new career, do something that you want. All he's asking is for you to help him make some money. And it's not like he's sitting at home doing nothing. He's running his own business. Girl, if you don't help out your husband, let me tell you this. You can either help out your husband, or it's going to be somebody else helping your husband out, and you're going to be sitting at home as a single mother. So you pick. Sorry, it sounds harsh, but that's the reality, because it's no shortage of women, as we just told you, that are sitting out here waiting for a man to take care of them. And they will require less than what you require. And then the only thing that you're going to be owed is child support. And that's if you get custody of the kids. But you're a single mother with no job, less earning potential than your husband. So to me, the courts would give custody of your kids to your husband. Now, girl, don't be so spoiled that you end up with the short end of all of these sticks. Girl, go get yourself a part-time job doing something that you enjoy doing.
Let me tell you something. Healthcare administrators, their earning potential is way higher than a physical therapist's earning potential, right? So if you look at healthcare costs, 93% of healthcare dollars go to administrators. Okay. It doesn't go to the physician. So when you talk about healthcare administrators of a system that is making, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, $1 million a year, that's a real thing. And so her earning potential over the 5 years that she's not working, she's lost a lot. And to say that she's going to do something part-time that's not in her field is like, okay, I decided if I married another doctor, I decided I'm going to work. I'm not going to work. He's going to provide. So I have lost my licensure and he's asked me to go back to work. Then I'm going to go back to work as the secretary of the unit? Oh, hell no. Like, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do something that's below my level of expertise? So, of course, I'm going to go back and have to get certified. That's the only thing that would make sense about my earning potential. And I feel like she's right. If I did not want to do this and I was reluctant and you said you were going to provide, And now I'm pretty much acting as the accountant of your practice, so I know what the finances are like. And you can pay Alpha trips, go on trips, because these sororities are expensive, honey. You paying dues and you going on trips. You spending thousands of dollars doing that, okay? And you going on boys trips? Why? Why am I getting a job? So now you want me to take care of our toddler full time, or actually we need to hire somebody or send them to daycare. That's going to cost us more money. And which a part-time job not in my expertise is not going to cover, right? And I'm supposed to be shuffling this 5-year-old around. So if I go back to work, automatically the 5-year-old is not going to be able to do as much because I'm not going to have the capacity to shuffle this child around to all these extracurricular things unless we're paying somebody extended hours. So automatically the child's activities will get sacrificed. Now, before we sacrifice the child activities, if I'm going back to work, you need to cut something out too, because it's not like she's sitting around doing nothing. Harrison is 2. Baby, when I tell you, it is like literally a full-time job having a child all day. It's a break to go to work. So she has 2 kids and she's taking care of his books. She is working. And I could see if they were strapped, like he's like, listen, we are going to need, we're going to lose our business. We need to float the business for a little while. We're going to lose our business. I need to go back to work. That's understandable. But that's not what he's saying. He's still doing his business as usual, keeping up with the Jones as usual, and he's breaking the agreement. She kept the agreement. He's breaking the agreement. And if the business isn't working, like in the last episode, he can go get a part-time job if the business isn't working, because guess what? We're going to have to hire somebody to come in here and raise these children. And you made me give up my job to do so. So no, I'm not going back to work. You made me give up my certification. Okay. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing something that's beneath my education level. I'm not going to sacrifice the kids' normal routine. I don't want my kids to feel that financial hit. Either you can adjust some things in the business. You can downsize. Perhaps you're not going to be open 5 days a week. You're going to be open 4 days a week, and you can go do some part-time consulting to make some extra income, or you can cut down on leisure stuff until we make up for that hit. It is unfair and unrealistic. It is, I hate that when people, even when women sacrifice their careers and then they end up getting divorced and they're in a world of trouble because now they have to get recertified. And a lot of times recertification is going to align with experience. Okay. Like for a physician, you can't renew your license without a certain number of cases. You're not going to be able to get hospital privileges without renewing your license, which comes down to a certain number of cases. So if you're not working for a number of time, then you have to work under somebody for a little while. See, you really are sacrificing when you choose to take time off, extended time off from the job. And then this joker go and mess up and y'all get divorced and you have to start over from scratch. Or he asks you to go get a job because he's not providing at the level he thought he was going to provide. Just unacceptable. For me, it's like, well, what we need to downsize. You need to downsize to keep the agreement. Don't make me struggle my way just because you didn't keep your end of the bargain. So I agree with her. I think that he needs to downsize first before, because who's giving her a break from the kids? She getting a break? Where's her break? Because these kids are a whole thing. These kids are a lot.
Okay, but let me say this. There no point in this letter did she address that she needed the vacation, that he wasn't allowing her to go and have fun time. None of that. What did she say, right? And I get it, the certification. I wasn't suggesting that she get another job in healthcare. I was suggesting maybe she start a business that was lucrative, like buy a franchise. I don't know. It seems a little like presumptuous to think that the one person who is providing should have to downsize. Like, if it were me and you told me, Nicole, hey, I'm going to downsize A, B, and C because James and I agreed that he would be a stay-at-home dad and blah, blah, blah. I would be like, well, can he get a part-time job so you don't have to downsize? Because that's what I would say if it were you, right? Nicole, you and I could have agreed to anything pre-pandemic. No one anticipated a pandemic. No one. And let's just say he does downsize, right? Who's to say that that's enough to make up the money that they've missed? I think that we're being ridiculous right now. You're telling the man to not go on alpha trips and do the things that give him some sort of relief from the stress of his day to day?
He does not have to spend thousands of dollars to get relief. So if she's not spending thousands of dollars, listen, the amount of money I'm about to pay to go to Boulé, thousands of dollars. And that's just for the flights. So you cannot tell me that he can continue to do leisure stuff if he breaks the agreement. And yes, I am going to not be involved. Hold on. If I'm not, let's say we did need to downsize, right? Or James didn't need to. How do I look saying, hey, I know you agreed to be a stay-at-home dad, but you need to get a job, and I'm still gonna go to Costa Rica for my birthday, and I'm gonna go to Orlando. We're gonna go to Disney as a family. Why are we doing all those leisure trips if we're trying to downsize? Why would we do that?
But why are we trying to downsize is my question.
Because
we're just trying to make up the difference for the pandemic. It didn't say that they were poor. It didn't say they were about to lose their house. It was about to lose their car.
It's unfair.
I don't think that it's unfair. And look, we can agree to disagree on this. I don't think that it's unfair. What I think, though, is, and maybe I think of it because I'm thinking of how I would feel if I were in the situation, right? If I were the one that made more money in my relationship and I felt like I wanted to go to Boulé or I wanted to go to a vacation or whatever it is that I want to go to, I'm the one making the money. I should be able to do what I want with my money. Now, if I made an agreement that you could be a stay-at-home something, how long did we make this agreement for? And are you knocking on the door of the end of this agreement because I need you to go out here and help? And then here's my—
Are you forgetting that she was reluctant? She didn't want to stay at home.
This right here is exactly what I was saying at the beginning of this episode when I said, be mindful that you cannot put all of your eggs in one basket, because while I would have been a stay-at-home mom, I would have had an online store. I'd have had something to bring in some kind of my own money and squirrel it away so that just in case this doesn't work out, I'm not finding myself in a situation that I can't get myself out of. Again, I feel bad, but you also don't want your husband to resent you.
Oh, but it's okay for her to resent her husband.
It's not okay. It's a bad situation. It's a tough situation. But the one part of this situation that she can control is whether she makes her own money or not.
He should have never opened her mouth. I could see if she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, she asked not to work. She was reluctant to work. And then we also have to think, if she's not doing something in her field that can earn, how much is it about to cost them to get childcare? How much is this going to cost? That's more than a part-time job.
If you don't put these little kids in school, the Head Start, kinder care, whatever.
They do.
And 5. By 3,
the 5-year-old, she said, goes to school. The 2-year-old doesn't.
I went to school when I was 2. Now, granted, my parents pulled me right out because it didn't work out very well. But I did go to school when I was 2. And then I went back to school when I was 3. Maybe you all come up with an agreement. I mean, I don't know how secure your agreements are in your relationship, but come up with an agreement to get you back into the work field, because you clearly want to go to work anyway. Because if you were reluctant, you wanted to work, you don't want to sit at home and be a stay-at-home mom. And with the way that you say that you're basically shuffling your 5-year-old around, it doesn't sound like you really enjoy being a stay-at-home mom anyhow.
Oh my God.
Find some childcare and go back to work.
You don't have no kids. You don't have no kids. And that's why you're saying that. Because everybody I know is shuffling their 5, 6, 7 because they have a schedule. Their schedules are busier than my schedule. That is probably what she means. It's not like she doesn't enjoy it. But if she's shuffling her kids around, it's true. They have a schedule. If they're in extracurricular stuff, they're in extracurricular stuff. I was talking to my friend Kim today about her child's schedule and how she's having to take off work to do her child's schedule. Girl, because her parents are out of town. It's a whole thing. So we're definitely not going to agree with this. We're not going to agree because I don't think you would ever be able to understand this. Because when you have somebody that said you need to stay at home and you're reluctant, and you stay at home and then you tell me a year later after I have lost all of my certification, lost all my skills. Like if somebody told me to stay at home and I agreed to stay at home and I lost my surgical skills and then I'm going back in the workforce being less than I could be, like how would I feel going to work and I couldn't do what I'm trained to do? Because that's what we're asking her to do.
But you would have never done that to begin with.
Everybody's different. What I would have done, because I know people that are doctors that are working, that are not working because they made an agreement. But if I were her, if I would go back to work, I'll go back to work full time And I would say, okay, now that you've taken a hit, you have more time, you take care of the kids. I'm going to go back to work full time and I'm going to move up the ladder and I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm never, ever not working again. That's what I would do if I were her. You want to play this game? I'm going to work and I'm going to do this. And I'm probably going to pull in more than you. So I'm going to go on trips and you're going to stay home with the kids because I guess I'm working harder than you now. So then I will have the upper edge. Based on what you're saying, Janine, that's what would happen.
And if it were me, that's exactly what would happen. First of all, let me be very clear. Finances is the number one reason why I don't want to have kids, because I feel like this. There's always a conversation at some point, whether it's a conversation or argument, a resentment, whatever. There's always a conversation at some point of who is going to take care of these kids and who has to take off from work and who has to do this and who has to do that. And this is exactly why I'm not interested. If I cannot afford to have someone take care of my kid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then I'm not going to have a child, because it's very unrealistic with the level that the amount that I like to work, that I would even have time for my kid. And that's not fair to the kid that somebody else is raising it and they think that that person is mommy. That's not fair. So let me be realistic about my life situation and not have kids. Now, once you've had them, the agreement, whatever this looks like, I'm sorry. This conversation sounds like the beginning of the end, because one person is going to resent the other one any way that you look at this. Either she's going to resent her husband for having to go back to work, or he's going to resent her for putting that extra strain on him and telling him to cancel his trips. That's all I'm saying. It's a terrible situation, but none of us expected the pandemic. Make it work.
Somebody in a relationship is always having to bite the bullet, right? That's what relationships are. They're give and take. It does not have to be a level of resentment, right? She didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. She's not saying that she resents her husband because she's staying at home with the kids. That's the decision they made. She made it consciously and she moved forward. They're going to have to talk about this together and say, hey, listen, is it even realistic that I'm going back to work part-time? Because when I go through all these things, I'm not going to go work at the Buc-ee's. That's going to make me feel like I'm wasting my time, right? I have a whole MBA or whatever she has to be a health administrator. So I'm going to go back and do that. But let's talk about what this looks like in the future. Or she should say, hey, is it feasible for me to go back to work? Because if I go back to work, let's talk about who's going to take care of the kids. Let's talk about, can we afford then to take care of the kids? She can't do something like start a franchise or anything like that because they didn't take a hit. Franchise fees are exhaustive, right? Again, they're all upfront fees, right? $230,000 for a franchise agreement. It's money that you paying up front. So you can't afford to do that when you're taking a hit. You got to work for somebody that's paying you. So she has to have that conversation of either she doesn't think it's feasible to go to work, it's going to take too long for her to get recertified, or I'm going to go ahead and take these steps to get recertified, but I'm going to stay at work because now you've broken the agreement. I didn't break my agreement. You broke yours. And if I'm going back to work, I'm going back full time. And I think that people can make those conscious decisions without being resentful, right? People do this all the time. It's a give and take. We moved to Indianapolis. We weren't, James wasn't all jumping up and down to move, but he knew that it was an opportunity for me. So you sacrifice for the other person in the relationship. So whatever the sacrifice is that you guys are going to make, you just have to touch and agree. And if you really feel like, hey, I think that we're good right now because I'm keeping the books, let's wait and see. And then this is how short we are, maybe you shouldn't do some of the things you do, and maybe she shouldn't do some extracurricular things she does. Then they can both cut before she has to go back to work. But I think that that's a conversation you're going to have, and they're going to have to get on the same page, because that's all relationships are. They are sacrifice. And every time you sacrifice, you're not going to resent the person that you're with. Both people are going to constantly be sacrificing.
Look, I agree that relationships are sacrifice. I would venture to say that relationships with kids are even more sacrifice. But again, I just keep thinking, if I'm the one making the money, I don't want anybody telling me what to do with my money. That's it. I don't want to hear it.
When you got papers on each other, it ain't your money or his money. It's y'all's money. It's our money.
I wish Ken would tell me I could not do something that I could reach into my bank account and pay for. And I think that that's why Ken is a good person for me, because he would never tell me if he doesn't agree with it. He'll say he's not paying for it. but he's not about to tell me that I can't pay for something.
What's your letter, Janine?
It says, Nicole and Janine, I'm 30 and I'm from High Point, North Carolina. I need your help. I've been seeing this guy, 10 years my elder, and we've been seeing each other for a few months now. I really like him, but I don't love him yet. Now, I'm an engineer, so it's no secret that I make a good living for myself. But this guy really likes to pay for things, like for everything. While I allow him to pay for things, I don't want to accept his money. I haven't taken anything from him outside of him paying for dinner or our activities, and I feel uncomfortable doing so because I have not taken money from anyone since I used to squander my dad's money when I was in college. I guess what I'm saying is he wants to take care of me, but I don't really know how to accept it. He wants to pay for trips, spa days, all of our dates. He even offered to pay my car note. He doesn't know my car is paid off. My default is declining, but I guess it would be a nice change to have someone take care of me. Whenever he offers, I decline and even argue and find a way to get through it. How can I start collecting his money and gifts without feeling guilt?
Well, one, what does he do, girl? Because it sounds like a dope boy to me. I'm just saying, like, he got a lot of money. Even people that have a lot of money aren't going to just be like, oh, let me give you some money, especially if you haven't been together that long. Let me give you cash. But if he's offering to pay for things and pay for trips, girl, let him pay. But I would definitely want to know what he does to make sure that he is making a legal living wage. Okay. So what does he do? If he owns a business, is it legit? Number two, let's say he is doing things the legal way. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable initially taking his money, but I would feel very comfortable allowing him to pay for things because I'm a Southern woman. And to me, that's what people do. Like if you are dating, like that's an investment that he needs to make sure that he can fund. So he needs to be able to show you that he can keep up with your lifestyle. So yeah, I would allow him to pay for my spa days. I would allow him to spoil me rotten. Okay. Because that's what people do when they're dating. Allow him to treat you. And this tells me that you're used to men that don't treat you. Okay. You're used to paying for everything. And so I don't agree with that. I mean, the first date, okay, yeah, you can say, if you don't like him, don't let him pay, right? Because I just feel like if you pay, that means that you're going to go on another date. Okay, that's how I feel. But if I don't like somebody and I'm not going on a date, I'll be like, I got it. That's what I used to do. I would definitely pay the bill if I did not enjoy myself because I'm like, this is the last time you'll see me. Don't call me. Don't expect nothing from me. I'm even going to pay the bill, okay, because I don't like you like that. But if I like you, oh yeah, I'm going to let you woo me. I'm going to let you pay. Now you can, when it's his birthday or something, you can spoil him back. But when you're dating, allow yourself to be courted. It's okay. So for me, it's very much okay if it's legal. Take your coins, girl, put it in your investment account and keep on going. That's money that you don't have to spend. Keep it moving.
Okay, so I will say this. There are a couple of things that stuck out to me in this letter. The first part is that you said you like him, you don't love him. You said that you've been dating a few months now. And now look, I understand that some people can grow on you. You didn't say you weren't in love with him. What you said is you don't love him, which means it's kind of like, where's this going? And are you just sitting dating him to pass the time away? Because you said that you've been dating for a few months. And I'm not saying you're going to be in love in a few months, but you kind of know whether you are into somebody or not at this point. That's if you are all are going on consistent dates. I will say that. So that's the first thing that stuck out to me. The second thing that stuck out to me is your hesitation. So I have questions. The manner in which he's asking you these things, is he trying to like shove money down your throat? Because that does feel a little dope boyish, like he's trying to somehow hide his money with you. But again, is it that or is it manipulative? Because oftentimes people throw money at you when they're trying to control you as well, so that they somehow make you feel that you're dependent on them, even though you're an engineer? Or is it this toxically masculine thing where he's trying to prove to you that he has money too? Because sometimes men can be intimidated when someone has such a big job like you do. So does this somehow have a malicious feeling or intent behind it? Because all three of those things are not great. If he's trying to hide his money with you and he's a dope boy like Nicole thinks he is, then we don't want that, because you want to keep your job as an engineer. And then second off, then is it that he's manipulative? Because that's terrible. And then just what does he do and why is he doing this, right? Because we don't want him to be competing with you either, because that's weird and that's going to go nowhere anyway. But if it is genuine, it really sounds like he might just have a gift-giving love language. And if that's the case, accept the gifts graciously and keep it moving. That just might be his love language. If that is his love language and you don't feel that there's any malice or manipulation behind it, accept the gifts. Now, the cash, I will say this. I'm not a fan of taking people's cash because it feels very sex workerish to me. That's just how it feels. That's me personally. But I will tell you this. There is a certain subset of men who I've come across that will drop money on you just to say that they appreciate your friendship, just to say they appreciate something that you've done for them. And they're not drug dealers. They're business owners. They'll just be like, oh, you know what? I was thinking of you. I saw this. Let me do this, right? Now, again, be leery when people give you gifts of what the intention is behind them, the gift, and do you owe them anything in return? If you don't owe them anything in return and you think it's a genuine gift of appreciation or just the thinking of you, then take it. And if you feel guilt about it, then don't take it. It's not that serious. I think we're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. If you don't really like this guy, who cares? Take his money, don't take his money, whatever you feel comfortable with. The name of this game is to come out of this relationship with one of two things: papers or more than what you came into the relationship with. That is all.
All right, Janine. So what did you learn new this week?
I learned that according to a 2019 Gallup poll, a record 56% of women preferred working than being a homemaker. Now, it specified women and a homemaker. So I was curious about how that changed during the pandemic, but the only numbers that I could find from Pew Research, which, you know, we rely on them heavily, but the only study that I could find was among mothers, and the preference of mothers dropped from 51% to 44%. Now, we can all imagine that is very different when you have a child and there's a pandemic and sending them outside is going to be a thing. So I was curious about that, but it did drop, but that was only among mothers. I would be interested to know about the childless women and how they feel. Do they prefer to work, or would they prefer, you know, maybe they've gotten a taste of staying at home and they prefer that? So I would be interested to know. Definitely we'll keep an eye out. What did you learn new this week, Nicole?
So there was a study done by University in England on Americans, right? And the study showed that it was over 6,000 American heterosexual couples, that's who they surveyed, who've been together at least 15 years. It showed that husbands' stress levels in America were high if they were the sole breadwinners. And it showed that the stress levels were lowest when their wives approached 40% of the household income. So the man made up 60% of the household income, the woman brought in 40%. However, if the woman earned more than 40% of the household income, the stress levels gradually start to increase. And the more the woman made up the household income, the more stress the man had.
That's because with that extra income comes our extra mouth. Trust and believe. Because if I'm making all of the money, I am also giving equal opinion. Whatever money comes in is the equal amount of opinion I'm giving. Now, is it biblical? No. But is it how I am? The Lord's still working on me.
That's real. Okay, so you ready for the motivational moment?
Let's do it.
So there were so many motivational quotes that I found. And just even in talking during this episode, Janine, I was like, nope, let me not use that one. Let me cross that one out. Let me not use that one. Okay, let me cross that one out. So I felt like it was good to say the motivational moment from Levita Sharin, who is an inspirational speaker. And it says, a true man doesn't promise, he commits. A true woman doesn't demand, she thanks. So ladies, keep being your sophisticated, sexy, and charming self. Play the role, uplift him. Don't push too hard. Once your standards are set, the man who chooses you will live up to them without hesitation. Until we meet again,
Pray, work, slay.
and show off your melanated excellence.
Bye.
Oh, That's Deep, Black Women Conversations is produced by Nicole Lee Plenty and Janine Brunson Johnson. Executive producer, Ken Johnson. Get the Oh, That's Deep, Black Women Conversation podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or where you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and rate us. You can follow Oh, That's Deep, Black Women Conversations on IG at Oh, That's Deep, BWC. Oh, That's Deep, Black Women Conversations is a Mean Old Lion Media production.